Welcome to Graphic Policy Radio. This is your host, Elana Levin, aka Elana Brooklyn. Graphic Policy Radio is a podcast about comics, but I've been covering animated shows a lot lately. I think a lot of us in comics enjoy drawn art in all of its forms. I know I, for one, never stopped watching cartoons, and we're really living in a renaissance of brilliant animation these days. Today we're going to be talking about Shira and the Princesses of Power. It's the new cartoon from showrunner Noelle Stevenson of Nimoa fame, really beloved, game-changing comic. Shira is a modern, diverse, feminist, queer reinterpretation of a cartoon from the 1980s. It's on Netflix streaming, and you need to watch it right now if you haven't. Joining me to talk are two badass cultural critics I'm excited to have on the show for the first time. Joining me is May Rude. May is a queer, fat, trans Latina, a writer, a tastemaker, and a lover of nerds. She lives in LA, and you can find her writing at Autostraddle, Remezcla, Vem.us, and other places, and follow her on Twitter at May Rude. T. Fougner is the editorial director for comics at King Features Syndicate. When she's not reading comics for work, she's reading comics for fun, drawing comics, dressing up as comic book characters, or watching comic adaptations on television. T is at T-Berry Blue on everything. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi, thanks, Elana.
Thank you.
Yay.
Happy to be here.
So my first question is, did either of you grow up watching Shira cartoons?
Yes, I was obsessed with it when I was a kid, so...
I did not.
I'm of a generation where I should have, but my parents really limited the number of cartoons we were allowed to watch.
Yeah, so my parents limited the number of cartoons I was allowed to watch, but the hard rules were I wasn't allowed to watch anything with any kind of cartoon violence where somebody, like, got squashed or, like, fell off a cliff and then came back, and I wasn't allowed to watch anything with guns, and Shira just kind of escaped the no guns rule because the guns are just a little bit off. So you have things like... there's like a bubble gun and like Hordak's arms shoot things, and that was okay. So yes, Shira was one of the shows I was allowed to watch, and I was super obsessed with it when I was a kid.
Beautiful.
I feel like it was designed for me, but I had some sort of, like, in addition to the fact that my parents wouldn't have let me watch it, I just had blinders that, like, anything that was marketed as being towards girls was just, to me, like, going to be stupid and not worth engaging with. And so even when they had things that were marketed towards girls that were deliberately being done to be exciting, I was like, stop that girl stuff. This is stupid. So I really missed out on it. And when I first heard they were bringing it back, I was so excited just knowing that Noelle Stevenson was going to be running the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I remember when I first found out, like, Noelle is one of my friends and also like, an absolute favorite creator. And just, it was so great. Like, it's a perfect project for her, you know?
Because she just has done these, like, fantasy, not princesses, but, like, in people in magical worlds.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's very much her wheelhouse. And I just remember the first time I spoke to Noelle about the show. It was, again, pretty early on. And she was sitting there and she's like, all these characters have such great names. You've got a character named Castaneda, and she casts nets. So, you know, it seemed like such a perfect match creatively.
Mm-hmm. Also, like, Noelle is just, like, a brilliant writer of trashy teens. And so this whole cast of just, like, angsty, emotional teens is just perfect. Perfect.
And these really are, like, super believable teens in a very fantasy world.
Yeah,
you know,
I love how real the
rewatching
characters are.
I was rewatching the first episodes to prep for this, and it brought me back to how young Glimmer is in the beginning of the series and how much she grows up over the course of it, you know?
Yeah, like, it at times is, like, very cartoonish, but then the characters have these, like, really solid emotional growths, and it's just really great. I love that balance that the whole show has.
I was just going to say, along those lines, like, one of the things that's fantastic about it is how much these characters are allowed to be kids, and I think my biggest criticism of the first show is that for me, when I was a kid, watching adults do things wasn't as exciting to me as watching kids do things. And so when I found out that they were aging all the characters down, I just got really excited about that, because I could just imagine kid me seeing these characters and being able to identify with these characters on a level that I wasn't able to when I was a child.
Oh, yeah, that's so great.
Like, did you have specific things from the original show, T, that you were really, like, hoping to see in the new one?
Yeah, and actually there are all things that I think the new show was really successful with. I think the biggest thing for me was, even as a child watching Shira, and I had watched He-Man before Shira started, it always really bothered me that you had this character who essentially grew up as part of the Horde, saw Hordak as a father figure, was very involved in the Horde, and was a force captain, which is some kind of, I guess, runs their own sort of like platoon of Horde members, Horde soldiers, and that she immediately finds out that the Horde is bad, and within a few episodes has no problem with this, and all of her former friends are now her enemies, and there's really never any character development around the fact that Shira grew up as part of this and is now on the other side. And the new show handles that so beautifully. So much of the new show is about the internal conflict of the fact that she's now fighting her friends, and how she manages all of these relationships, and particularly her incredibly close relationship with Catra, who takes over as force captain when Adora leaves. So for me, that is the thing that I really wanted to see from the new show, and is kind of central to the new show. So I was really happy about that.
That's really interesting. I actually didn't realize that the initial show had that as her origin, and it's that's so much more interesting and richer than the initial notion of He-Man, where he's just coming from this complete place of power, but being inept, and then suddenly he gets more power, where she has to have this radical transformation of her ideals and worldview.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the really great things about even the early Shira is that, in contrast to He-Man, Shira sort of feels like Star Wars if you replaced most of the significant male characters with female characters. It's really this story about people fighting against an incredibly powerful patriarchy. It's got a lot of really important, I don't want to say lessons, because it's got those weird, terrible, we're going to give you this really didactic lesson thing, but really important values for girls to see modeled growing up, and understanding that things aren't going to come as easily to you as they are to boys sometimes, that you're going to have to fight all of these battles, and that those battles are very real. So that thing is really existent in the original show. It just, you never see Shira or Adora taking that sort of, having that sort of character arc of getting to grow out of being this evil thing into understanding all of the complexities of the society she's grown up in. And that's, again, what I think makes the new show so strong.
I think that one of the big things folks have been excited about, too, is just the character redesigns. I think as soon as we saw the art, we were just so excited for it.
Oh, man.
So talk about that a little bit, folks.
I love the character design on this. Like, there's obviously, like, the, like, heavy Noelle Stevenson design influence. Like, you can see it in the face and in, like, the shoulders. That little demon character that Hordak has, the little spy, is like a classic Noelle character.
He looks like a Bamf from X-Men a little bit. Like Nightcrawler's little, I don't know, it's adorable.
Yeah, he's actually also in the original show. He's heavily redesigned, and I totally don't remember what his name is, but he's very much in the original show as well. So that's one of the things that I loved about this was how much it's really direct adaptation of the original. And then how well it's redesigned. I think for me, just all of the different body types that we're seeing portrayed in the new one. The original one, every single character has exactly the same physique. None of them wear pants ever. The ones who do wear pants, it kind of looks like they painted them on. So just the variation in body types and skin colors that we're seeing, and also fashion choices that you have. Yeah. Just really, really wide variety of kind of personalities that you see grown out of the way that these people dress that isn't at all part of the original.
And also it's just, I think it's more fun. Like, it's more fun for Catra to be a cat person than to just be a normal, skinny, beautiful woman, you know? Like in the original show, like, they just really captured that sense of fun and that sense of, like, wonder, and I want to be immersed in this whole world, you know? And I think that the character design is a huge part of that.
Yeah. And I also love a lot of the ways that I think really it's very clear how much thought went into building character designs around these personalities in ways that challenge expectations. Scorpia is a perfect example of this because she's this huge, very butch scorpion lady, but she's also this incredibly gentle person. And I love that contrast of character design with who she is as a person. And then I also love the fact that she's this incredibly gentle person who's also on the bad guy side.
Yeah, right? Like, she's incredibly gentle, and then, like, all of a sudden, in, like, when she does turn, she's like, oh, like, this is a scary, powerful woman, you know?
Yeah.
I loved when I heard her voice and realized that, you know, it was her voice. I was like, oh my God, look at this woman's amazing, like, Midwest, like, butch, like, energy. Like, you just don't, I'm like, I hear her, I know her, she has a flannel, but not in this show because that doesn't quite make sense. And it was just so exciting. Like, yeah, to have a woman who's large and powerful, of which there are multiple ones in this show, but, like, have her also sort of come off as, like, super wholesome is just, but still glamorous.
Yeah. Just,
like, you never get to be
really,
all of those things.
Yeah, just well-rounded characters, which is amazing, you know, for a cartoon with 13 episodes.
I mean, and like I know we're going to talk about Princess Prom in a little bit, and we can talk about all the multiplicity of amazing different gender presentation and such when we hit that moment. But yeah, like, there's so much love for her, Scorpia. I mean, in the original show, was there any racial diversity in the cast at all, even?
Not that I can recall. I'm pretty sure, you know, I actually started rewatching early episodes of the first one to get ready for this. And not really. You know, I think there is more diversity in, like, monster types than there are in people, which is really disappointing.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, like, there's a leech person and a beast person, but there aren't Black people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really, that's another thing that I really loved is how, you know, how much care and thought went into making sure that the new cast was extremely representative.
Yeah, absolutely. And the voice cast, too. Like, there's so many people of color in the voice cast, and I love that.
It was really exciting to hear Bo. Like, Bo's voice actor, he's amazing. He works on Blackish.
He's so good.
And I haven't heard people giving any shit over the fact that, you know, Bo is brown on the TV show. We have heard all kinds of horrible things from, like, Terrible Men about the new series. But surprised to find that, like, people were not obsessing about that.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest conversations around the redesign was, like, men who think that the cartoons only exist for them to masturbate to were really upset that Shira didn't have giant boobs anymore. And, you know, a lot of people respond to them explaining that Shira's a young teenage girl. And plenty of young teenage girls have all different kinds of bodies.
Yeah.
But often young teenage girls don't have large breasts. Also that the cartoon doesn't exist to sexualize girls' bodies for the enjoyment of men. Like on so many different levels. This was just and for those who don't know, like 4chan type dudes went out and like downvoted the show on IMDb. They really had an organized campaign against it because they were angry.
They wrote negative reviews on websites. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like part of the reason there hasn't been so much uproar about Bo is that none of these like cishet guys who were pissed off about Shira ever wanted to fuck Bo in the first place. So.
Oh wow, yeah.
And
That's,
frankly,
you know,
in some ways, I feel like Bo's design on the new show is kind of less gay than he was in the old one.
Oh my gosh, really?
He has this, like, first of all, the old Bo is showing even more midriff.
Amazing.
He's got, like, got this amazing red hair and this shiny mustache. And,
yeah, I'm looking right now. Wow.
Yeah, no, he's like...
Oh, and the
Bo
cape.
on the original show is so gay. He is so gay.
Wow.
And he comes across as very gay on this show, even though he's also like kind of Shira's love interest on the original one.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of baffling to me because it, you know, but again, then I feel like that was actually taken, like this part of Bo that reads as very queer in the original one was kind of picked up on and carried into the new show and really made into part of who he is, like, you know, the way that the character interacts with, you know, with both male and female characters in the new show. You know, really kind of has roots in the original, but he's such a sweet character in the new one. And it's just such a good personality. In some ways, he takes a lot of what He-Man is in the original one, because He-Man's in a lot of the original Shira, and one of the things that's fascinating to me about He-Man is here's this character who's hyper masculine and wears pink with lavender furry underwear, and is incredibly gentle and kind and supportive of his sister. And all the boys who watched this when they were kids grew up to then downvote Shira. But Bo takes on a lot of the stuff that this very, like, the like kind of gentle compassion that Adam / He-Man shows in the original kind of gets given to Bo, and I really appreciate that.
I love how, like, in touch with his feelings Bo is. And just how he cries so often, which is such a great thing for a male character on a kid's show, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I love it. And he talks about his feelings, and he talks about what he's afraid of. I love Bo so much.
Yeah.
And I love that he's so close friends with Glimmer from the start. He is very comfortable being with girls, and that's just comfortable for him.
Yeah, they have a sleepover.
Yes.
They go to the spa thing together, and it's just totally normal for like boys and girls to be friends, which in real life it should be totally normal, you know? But we make it into this big thing where it's like, ooh, you're friends with a girl.
Why don't you kiss them?
Yeah, exactly. But in this show, they're just allowed to be friends, and I love it.
Yeah.
So we're going to go spoilers from here on out, guys. If you haven't watched the show, stop now. I'm sure you are very excited to experience it. Okay, so come back, listen to the show when you're done watching it. Okay, now into the spoilers. Like, one of the things that I love is that even when Bo expresses jealousy, I'm sorry, not Bo, when Glimmer expresses jealousy that Bo is, you know, going to Princess Prom with somebody else, it's not done in a way where it's like catty girls fighting. Like, it really is rooted in friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much we always did this together and now you're doing it with someone else.
Mm-hmm. This is our classic friendship. Things are changing and I don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know?
And I still think Bo is clearly queer-coded. Like,
very much so.
I would say yes, absolutely.
Like, there's not really, like, even though he's going with Perfuma to the dance, it doesn't seem like they're going for coupley reasons. He's just like, this is someone cool. I'll go to the dance with you. Sure, you asked.
Yeah.
And also, she asked him, right? So...
She asked him, and then, I mean, like, it's very obvious that he's totally into Seahawk, so...
Oh, he's in love with Seahawk in a beautiful, beautiful fanboy way.
Yes.
I love it so much.
It's so cute.
Seahawk is like, oh, my mustache is naturally shiny. And Bo's eyes just like, oh, he loves it.
Yeah.
And then when Seahawk like swings in and rescues Bo and is carrying him in his arms.
Yeah.
And Bo is just like having the best moment of his life. He's like, yes, I'm in this beautiful, strapping man's arms. I love this. This is my favorite thing.
Yeah, he's like clearly died and gone to heaven in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Seahawk is like, is a character who I think is really clearly can be read as bi, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Really
Oh,
awesome
absolutely.
Too.
I would say like Seahawk is pan or bi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he does not seem.
Yeah. I would say definitely pan because he loves men and he loves women, but he also loves the sea.
Oh,
that's true.
So
And
true.
Beyond all
and adventure. He loves adventure.
He does love adventure.
So, I also just had this big note that just says, like, Mermista. Like, Mermista is amazing.
Oh, I
And
love her.
She's not... The thing that just blew my mind when we saw her is, like, she is not a type or a trope that exists. Like, there is no type that I you know what I mean? She's just really over everything and really blasé and just wants to be left to her own devices and thinks all this stuff is dumb. And I just don't think I've seen a female character. And she's also really clearly, Southeast Asian, and that's just who she is.
Yeah, she's well, and then she also is those things, but she has enough emotions and enough feelings and connections to the rest of the characters that like it doesn't seem like just a stereotype broad strokes thing, like she's also a real character. She also like gets embarrassed when her friends find out that Seahawk is her +1 to the princess prom. Like she has emotions and she has feelings, and it elevates her from like it could have been this gag character like
Right.
oh, she's just constantly rolling her eyes and whatever. But then even with her, they still elevate her to this complicated character, and I love it.
I mean, and when she doesn't want to go swimming through sewage, we understand why. That's a legitimate feeling to have.
Oh, man, that was so good.
And she does it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things about Mermista, too, is that and one of the things about the show in general is this idea of it's not just Shira, that they're all princesses and the whole princesses of power thing. And when you have a character like Mermista, it really kind of reifies the idea that, princess isn't just one thing. And that you can be a princess and still be jaded about everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can
I love that the show's theme was the princesses of power. Like, it isn't just one person. It isn't just one way to have power.
Yeah.
I want to quote something from the beginning of the series. Catra says, oh, no, not Catra. Adora, a.k.a. Shira, says, princesses are a dangerous threat to everyone on Eternia.
Yes.
They are violent instigators who don't even know how to control their powers. And I love they have lines like the Whispering Wood is full of dangerous princesses. So the whole world kicks off under the assumption that we all know princesses are really powerful. I mean, maybe we haven't decided they're dangerous or not, but being a princess and being powerful just goes hand in hand, and they can be a physical, like they're tough. They know how to fight.
And they're the ones in charge, like.
Yeah.
It's never being like, oh, we need to worry about the princes or the knights or the police or whatever, it's princesses specifically are the ones who are in power, who are in charge, who are getting stuff done.
I think it's also this idea that powerful little girls have the most potential to overthrow the status quo.
That's so good. I love that. Yes. Yeah. Oh,
that's
man.
really beautiful. Yeah. And so by starting this off as a natural assumption, like we're telling kids, like, no, thinking that girls are powerful is just a natural assumption that you can have.
Yeah, this show it just like throws so many premises out the window, of like how society is supposed to treat girls and queer people, like everyone goes to, not everyone, but like close to everyone, like a lot of people go to princess prom with a same-sex date, and it's totally normal, you know, like they don't make a big deal out of it. And just like this, they don't make a big deal. It's like, oh, it's weird in this world, princesses are the one with power, you know. It's just natural, and it's just like, yeah, of course princesses are powerful. Yeah, of course girls go on dates with girls. Yeah, of course all these friends are super diverse, you know. All those things are just there, and they're not like a spectacle or like a very special episode explaining how girls have power too, you know. Like, it's just, the whole show is just saturated in it, and I love it.
I remember when Catra is trying to get Entrapta onto her side, and she's like literally flirting with her, and I was like, maybe I want them together. And the fact is that there's so many queer women that you can ship all these different people with each other as a normal extension of watching the show.
It's bonkers, just like how many, just like it feels like almost every character like could be queer, and that's amazing, because in real life that's how it is, you know. Every person that you meet could be queer. You don't know when you meet them. Like, queer people come in all shapes and sizes and personalities, and I love that about this, that you can see that no matter what type of person you are, you can see a character and you can feel comfortable about who you are in that character, you know.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about that is it's also just that any of these characters could have any shape of relationship with any of these other characters, and the way that relationships are prioritized feels very queer too. That, you know, that romance isn't necessarily the end game, that friendships are, you know, just as important as romance, and that within those there's all different ways of defining those kinds of relationships. Back to Entrapta. One of the things that was amazing about Entrapta is that you have all these different character motivations, and you have this character who all she really wants is to be able to explore things and, you know, do things that fascinate her and satisfy her curiosity, and she doesn't really care so much about sides or who's good or who's bad. She just wants to like be left alone to do her science however she can. Which in some ways also feels kind of queer. You know, it's this, you know, this character who just has this one thing that they really love, and that's going to sort of indicate their motivation.
And when she makes a robot, or she takes over one of the baddies' robots, she names it Emily. And it's just a very normal thing that a robot is called Emily.
Oh, Emily is wonderful.
So great. And like Entrapta's whole storyline is just really great, and I think throws in this like you were saying, this like super wonderfully complicated thing where it's like her character, like you said, isn't black or white or good or evil, you know. She's complicated, and in real life that's another thing, you know. Like, you're gonna meet people who aren't necessarily like motivated to do, oh, I'm always gonna do the right thing, or like I'm gonna do the selfish thing, whatever, you know. There are people who are just doing their own thing, and like, you're gonna need to forge relationships with some of them, you know. Like, those are real people.
Yeah.
I also love, I feel like I haven't talked enough about Shira herself. The fact that when Adora gets her Shira powers, she gets larger. Like, there are so many magical girl transformations in the world. This is, I swear, the only one. Look, I'm not an anime master, and I'm actually not a magical girl expert, so please tell me I could be completely wrong. But it felt really unique to me that when she gets her powers, she gets like physically larger, and then everybody looks at her and it's like, wow, she's really big, and that is cool.
Yeah, everyone's so in love with this like giant sword lady, and I love it. Like, I think the thing I would compare it to is like in Steven Universe, you know, when the gems fuse, and like Steven has the whole song like, all I want to see is a giant woman, you know. Like, all of the people in Steven Universe are fascinated and just in awe of these giant gem fusions. Just like in this, they're all like, oh my gosh, giant sword lady.
Someone needs to make a fan video of Giant Woman song too, with like Shira stuff in it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, May, because it's definitely one of those things where when that part in the show happened, I totally got that song in my head.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is another theme, like, with respect to technology versus nature. Like, it is really clear that, you know, like, what is happening from Hordak is this encroachment of technology onto the natural world. And I'm always a little bit, conscientious around that trope. And I do think that the show will find a way to make that work in the end, though. So it's not, like, reductive or whatever.
I don't think it is reductive already, though, because one of the things that we see that there used to be this other world that had this really beneficial technology.
Yeah.
So you've got, I don't remember, I think they're called, like, the Ancient Ones or
the first ones.
The first ones.
So the first one's technology is clearly something different from Hordak's technology. And I think that in a lot of ways, and then you've got a character like Entrapta, too, who the way that she understands and works with technology is very different. So it's not so much that the technology itself is being perceived as this thing that's going to destroy the way people live, as it is that the way that the Horde is using technology is incredibly destructive.
Yeah,
I
I
do
think
love
it's
the aesthetics of those temples. Like, it's very Art Deco, Japanese circuits on it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's more kind of almost like anti-capitalism and imperialism than anti, like, science and industry, you know? Like, it's like you said, they're battling against this patriarchy, and so it's, I think, more a commentary on how the patriarchy and how, like, a white, cis-het patriarchy uses technology to corrupt things and to destroy things, when that's not, like...
I wouldn't read Hordak as white, though. Like, his voice actor is black.
Yeah, that's true.
What's her
that's
name?
true.
Her voice actor is also black.
That's
but, like, that is
absolutely
normally how
true.
I would interpret that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, though, speaking of, what's her name? The woman who's...
Shadow Weaver?
Shadow Weaver.
So, like, when her mask gets kicked off and you can see that she's scarred, I was like, don't do that. Don't do that. But there were so few moments I had where I felt like this is a problem. There were very few moments like that. I love Swiftwind deciding that as soon as, like, giving the horse autonomy, and the first thing he does is go to liberate other horses and not just stay there with the humans.
So my husband and I keep calling Swiftwind we keep calling him the socialist horse, and we love the fact that basically, like, Shira used her magic on a horse, and now the horse is a socialist. And so there's this one point where she accidentally uses her magic on a lizard, and the lizard has the same thing happen that Swiftwind happened. So we know that somewhere out there's this socialist lizard who's probably out liberating the other lizards, but the lizard never shows up again, and we really want to know what happens to the socialist lizard.
Socialist lizard episode in season 2. You've all got a tweet about it, asking for it.
Oh, man. Well, let's talk about Princess Prom, because everybody wants to talk about Princess Prom. Princess Prom is the episode where all the princesses go to prom, often with each other. There's also, like, an actual dance sequence where everybody has to dance with each other. And
Catra and Adora dancing together is just, like, so good. So perfect and so gay, and just, like, everything I think that, like, people in the, like, queer women community have been hoping for their entire lives. Like, it was just so perfect.
Yeah, it's an incredibly amazing scene, and it's the kind of, I don't know whether to call it sexual or romantic tension that you rarely get to see between two women.
Mm-hmm.
And, and it's just one of those, places where you can see how incredibly close these characters were and in some ways still are, but also this sort of, this rift that's broken between them, and kind of the impasse that they're at, and how those two things are playing against each other, and it's playing out visually, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, just having Katra on the show with her like punk rock suit, but also long hair, was like I feel very seen. And you know, it was definitely like something that I think would have all benefited from greatly having as kids on TV.
Oh man, well, and I mean, they're like definitely. I think most of the time Scorpia is very butch, but in Princess Prom, when she's all femmed up and she's super tall, but she's also wearing heels. And as like a 6 foot tall woman, like seeing a tall femme and a broad shouldered femme and a big femme, you know, like, well, and especially like, I mean, like I love the trope of like big femme, little butch. And so Scorpia and Katra going to the Princess Prom together, I was like, oh yes, this is my life. This is what I've been searching for.
Look at all of these wholesome, kid appropriate, like women and like girls and girls with like romantic, you know, feelings for each other, and it's also age appropriate and wholesome, and we can have all the kids watch this, and like, you know, I know that all of my friends and stuff like that who have kids of age are watching that show, and like I love how all ages friendly it is.
Yeah.
But I'm also watching it being like, young Elana would have feelings for all of you, and that's great.
But yeah, I think to your point, Elana, though, like having a show like this that is so incredibly all ages friendly, but so incredibly queer is so important because, you know, it challenges all those notions that anything queer is automatically sexual or automatically not for children.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that I work, I do organization stuff for FlameCon for the cosplay program at FlameCon, and that is one of those things where for me it has always been such an important aspect of trying to organize a convention to make it very all ages friendly, family friendly, when people immediately see it and assume that it's not.
Yeah. Oh man. Also, I think it's a great commentary on how like kids and teens are complex, and they have complex relationships and complex identities and complex thoughts and feelings, you know, and it doesn't try to dumb teenagers down. This show doesn't at all, you know. It treats them like people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, with that in mind, let's talk about Glimmer's relationship with Glimmer's mom.
Oh man.
I was like, the show did such an amazing job of showing like you have this overprotective mother and a kid who's trying to, you know, assess her independence and who is often right but isn't always right, and who at a certain point assumes that her mom is trying to tell her what to do and boss her around when her mom has actually already begun to respect her boundaries.
Yeah,
and like, treat her as more adult.
I love the message that the show, so it like heavily lays down this message. It's like, talk about your feelings, like tell your loved ones how you feel. If something is bothering you or if you're hurt, talk to the people you love and who love you, because they'll listen.
Yeah, and I think too, having that relationship, having that mother-daughter relationship, and having it feel really real and complex, and letting them both be right and both be wrong about different things is really good and important.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the original Shira, the kind of thing that brings Glimmer and Adora together is that it starts with Angela having been captured. And Shira goes and rescues Angela from the Horde. So it's, you know, and then Angela comes back and kind of looks like she's the same age as Glimmer, and it's weird. But, there's there are no middle-aged ladies on the old Shira.
Wow.
And it's really, that's another place where I don't know that the original one did a great job of developing that relationship as really feeling authentically like a parent learning to adapt to their adult child who has kind of learned to be a leader in her own right. And it's something that the new one does so fantastically well.
So we have this one family that is like a loving family, but still has its problems and still has its challenges. And then we have this super abusive family that Katra and Adora escape from.
Yes.
And I have in my, you know, they have this episode 11, which I know that May really wants to talk about.
Beautiful episode.
That's the episode where they're in the temple, and they start and Catra and Adora sort of relive and review scenes from their abusive childhood together. And I have my note just says like, look, we have like Catra and Adora wandering around a backdrop from a trapper keeper, reliving childhood trauma.
Yeah. It's
just like, this is a trapper keeper.
Yes.
I had this trapper keeper in the 80s. Some people might be like, no, it's not Lisa Frank. Trapper Keepers had a different kind of weird computer-generated graphic design, but that's where they are. But they're having childhood trauma all over it. So dig in there, folks.
Yeah, I love that. Again, like, that's more of the, like, you need to process your feelings. You need to deal with your feelings. You can't just bury them. You know, this show is so, like, there are all these, like, great, like, healthy themes. You know, like, I feel like it does such a great job of explaining and showing these, like, really healthy relationships, both with yourself and with others, and how to have relationships with people who are different, and how to grow from your mistakes, and how to grow from your trauma, and how to heal, and how to learn, and how to just become a person, you know? And I love it so much. I just love those themes of growing and becoming a better person and not being trapped by your past. You know, I love that so much.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about that is that we've, at that point in the show, we've gotten to really see a similar sort of friendship between Glimmer and Bo, who we get this sense have been friends forever and grew up together, and are getting to a point where, like, as teenagers, there's some places where they're starting to have differences, and they're starting to want to go off in their own ways. But that because they've had this really sort of healthy foundation, it's very different from what Shira is able to have with Catra, and kind of showing all of that toxicity and how it makes it so much harder to be able to maintain a relationship with somebody when you're trying to move away from that and they're still kind of mired in it.
Yeah.
And I also was just thinking, like, you have these two, it complicates the phrase Dora to describe them this way, but like these two siblings who have this abusive parent figure who decides that one of them is the good one and the other one is the bad one.
Oh, gosh.
And the way that fucks up the good one is different than the way that fucks up the one who's labeled as bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think Catra, they just hadn't acknowledged that with each other prior to that sequence.
Mm-hmm. I think Catra sort of like hinted at it earlier when Adora first leaves and is like, we're the bad guys. And Catra's like, they've always been a bad guy to me. Why didn't that make you leave? You know? Like, she's like, when they're hurting these other people, then you leave. But when they hurt me, it's totally fine. Like, I think Catra has been very aware of this dynamic that they have, like, since it started. And just now it's boiling over. And she's seeing that Adora completely... like, I mean, was blinded by privilege, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think also... I was going to say, I think also you have this dynamic with Catra where finally, after all these years of abuse, she's getting treated with that privilege. Mm-hmm. And so now she's being told to leave. She's finally getting the thing that she's been fighting for her whole life. And now... the person who had that for all of those years is telling her that it's bad and she should leave.
Yeah.
That's such a great point. You know, and I think, like, the fact that for Catra, the only options she saw was gaining power within that bad system.
Yeah.
And, and then continuing that abuse on others, right? Because she's, like, terrible to Kyle.
Yeah.
You know, poor, small, blonde, feminine Kyle. The
little Kyle.
As much as I worry about him and as much as I totally understand, like, why Bo would sort of basically flirt with him to try to escape.
Right.
I have to admit, I laughed really hard when Kyle was yeeted. I feel like maybe I hadn't understood it that way until somebody memed it, but I was like, dear Lord, Seahawk literally tossed Kyle up an elevator, and it was like,
it's yeah.
I felt so bad about that. I couldn't help it. Oh Christ, though! But speaking of sidekicks, the whole series where like Catra is saying that she basically has been made into Adora's sidekick, and now finally Catra basically is like, Catra's like, oh well, Scorpia is my sidekick now, and Scorpia's like, I'm not your sidekick.
No.
That's not how this works. I don't think I've seen shows really address that way before.
Yeah, well, and also it's just like the relationship between Scorpia and Catra is just overall amazing. Like, they're learning about boundaries, and they're learning about how to be friends with someone who's not like you at all. And Catra is learning to sort of open up a little bit, but not really. And also it's just this dynamic of Catra being this literal teenager who comes in, and then by the end of the season, Hordak is like, oh, you're the new, like, second in command. And just how much pressure that is, you know? And I can't wait to see the second season, how Catra deals with that.
Yeah, no, it's devastating to me that at the end, when Hordak tells Catra, you're like my second in command now, and she smiles, and you're like, oh, right. Catra thinks this is her happy ending.
Yeah,
that's
right?
so sad.
Yeah.
Like, she deserves so much better.
And she knows, like, how bad Shadow Weaver had it. You know, like, she's seen how the second in command ended up. And she's still, it's all she knows, you know? She's like, this is the best thing I can see in my world.
Yeah, well, and it's also the thing that she sort of spent her entire life craving, is this attention and this assurance that she's doing well. You know, so she's finally being told that she's doing things right by by one of the people who, you know, told her she was doing things wrong her entire life. And that's all she's ever wanted, so she can't see beyond the fact that it's all she's ever wanted.
Yeah.
Whew. Yeah. Also, I want a little happier topic.
Yeah.
Which is totally fine. Like, the show has to be dark, or else it's not going to have that much richness as it has now. But I loved that, like, when they finally bring back I have it written down as Natasha, but that's not her name, is it? And
no, Natasha's her name.
It is Natasha.
Oh, yeah.
Natasha.
I think I called her Castaneda before, but I don't think that's right. Castaspella is the character. I was mixing two names up together.
These are amazing names.
I love the naming concept
Natasha.
of just like your defining trait and add a vowel to it.
Yes.
I love that.
So
Catra, Scorpia, Bo, Natasha, Spinnerella. Just
one of the things that's hilarious is my husband actually asked me last night how you spell bow, because he couldn't figure out if it was bow like the implement or bow like handsome.
Exactly, yeah.
And it is bow like the implement. But yeah, it's such a great double entendre.
I love it.
People name themselves? Like, I was just thinking, like, are these people's chosen names?
I don't know. That would be awesome.
Right?
Well, I think not with why would Adora choose the name Adora?
Well, right.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't think all of them. But is she the only exception in this world? She's the only one whose name isn't just like a descriptor of them.
Well, but it is, because she's the one who is adored by the Horde.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine the Horde would let people name themselves.
Yeah. And Catra doesn't like it when you remind her that she's a cat. So I think, like, they're being named, but maybe the folks in, like, the maybe the princesses are, like, and Bo, they're naming themselves, which I think is, like, particularly queer.
Absolutely.
But so Natasha and Spinnerella are an adorable couple.
Yeah.
And you have to be, like, I can't conceive of a reality where one can watch that show and not say,
yes.
these two women are a couple. And I deeply appreciate how they just, like, surrounded that with, like, no, this you cannot have another interpretation of this. This is the couple.
Yeah, I love it. Like, it's, again, that very, like, straightforward, just, like, this is how things are. We're not going to have, like, a special episode introducing them as a couple. They just are a couple, and if you pay attention to the show at all, then you'll see that, and it's a totally normal thing.
And meanwhile, Star Wars, which this show actually has a lot of narrative similarities from, partially because they've all been reading Joseph Campbell, but probably also because of the love of Star Wars. Star Wars, we're, like, watching Rogue One, and I'm, like, looking at, oh my god, I'm forgetting his name, Battle Monk and Blaze, and I'm like, so they're space husbands. Mm-hmm. But, like, and, you know, and, like, straight people who I know were also, like, those guys are space husbands.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't assume that an elderly couple of straight people would look at them and say, well, they're space husbands. But meanwhile, Shira, like, I don't think that elderly couple looks at Shira and doesn't say that Natasha and Spinnerella are a couple. Like, even though they don't kiss.
Right.
Like,
Spinnerella is like, oh, honey, you make beautiful nets.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, they're just a classic couple. I love it. Like, so and they feel so natural.
Star Wars needs to catch up.
Yeah. One of the things, you know, you bring up Star Wars, it's so interesting to me because obviously the original show was being made, like, just after Return of the Jedi came out. And, well, for me, one of the things that I've always felt is that Adora's story is really similar to Mara Jade.
Oh, wow.
I don't know my expanded universe, really.
Okay. Mara Jade's place in the Empire is very similar in that she's this incredibly beloved, you know, character who has, you know, who's basically got this, you know, place of privilege there, and then slowly starts to realize that everything about it is wrong. And so it's a really similar character arc, and it's one of those things that I always just really like, is thinking about all of the sort of stories and tropes from Star Wars and how they kind of feed into what Shira is.
Honestly, that right there just blew my mind. Like, I had not thought about that, but that's so right. That's so good. I love that.
Do you remember Razz from the 3rd episode, the old lady who she wanted?
Yes, Madame Razz.
That's Yoda. Like, she's like Razz is sort of embodying this, like, holy fool, like, trope from, like, martial arts movies, but she's also Yoda.
So Madame Razz is a much bigger character in the original one. She's in almost every episode.
Oh, wow.
She's one of the so in the original, also, nobody knows that Adora is Shira, which is really weird because she's, like, standing there doing the I have the power thing in front of all these people, and they never figure it out. But Madame Razz is one of the very few people who knows her secret. And she's got this, like, amazing, like, weird, like, Brooklyn accent, and
oh my god,
she's this like, it's actually one of the things that I'd like to see more of her in the new show, because she's this weird sort of absent-minded wizard lady, and she's great.
And I think we will see more of her in the 2nd season. Like, you know, they introduced so many characters in this 1st season, and so I'm really excited to get, like, some deep dives into some of them next season.
So yeah, let's talk about what are you guys looking forward to in the next season, which we're getting. Hooray!
Ooh. I think for me, and it's one of the things, I know you mentioned a little bit your discomfort with the Shadow Weaver stuff, but one of the things that they really developed a lot more in this was that backstory. In the original one, we know that Shadow Weaver was originally part of Magicorp and left because Hordak promised her all this power. But in this one, you get the whole Lightweaver thing. That's new. And you get this idea that something went wrong there, and there was some kind of, you know, that there was some sort of schism, but not really what it is. And I'm really interested in seeing if we learn more about what happened and what that history is.
Yeah.
it seems really interesting. And obviously, again, more of what's going on with all of Adora's former friends in the Horde.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's sort of a joke among me and my friends, but we all want a Kyle redemption arc. That's what we're hoping for season 2.
Yes, for real. Oh, for sure. I think that he's deserving it. He's like the most put upon, traumatized.
I know, he's
person.
just a poor little baby. Exactly, yeah, both of us. Poor baby. Exactly. But also, like, I honestly just want more Adora and Catra interactions. Like, I can't wait to see even more of that. They're so great together. And both of the voice actors do such a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, just the whole show is full of amazing voice actors.
So
but, like,
true.
Ali Machalka, or AJ as Catra is just
Catra.
like, wow, blowing my mind. She's so good. She's so good.
Yeah, it's also so gratifying to see that with Catra, because going back to the old one, literally, like, all Catra does is, like, make these screechy cat noises. And she's like, yeah, and so, like, she got this horrible, like, meow she does before she says anything, so it'll be like, meow, I'm evil. And, and so getting this Catra who's got this incredibly nuanced vocal performance is so great.
Yeah. Oh, well, and then also she's really great at making, like, cat noises.
Yes.
Like, I love all the noises. Like, when Catra purrs, or when she's sniffing out Entrapta in the tubes or whatever, like, and she has her little paws, like, curled over. I love Catra's body language so much. When she's curled up at the bottom of Adora's bed.
Yes!
It's so good.
So cute.
It's
oh my gosh.
so good. Catra's amazing. I love Catra.
It's all so heartbreaking and amazing. It's true.
Yeah.
I guess for me, next season, I'm looking forward to, obviously, the Entrapta storyline is going to be really,
yes.
I'm looking forward to, I don't know, like, everything, I guess. It's hard to spit, but I really think, like, this might be an interesting story where Catra gets what she wants and then realizes what she wants is not actually great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll probably get more of Bo's dedication to exposed midriffs.
I love it. And
very dedicated.
Maybe we'll see if Swiftwind's Revolution bears any fruit.
So in the original one, Bo also has a horse, and his horse is named Arrow, and so I definitely want to get Arrow in on that horse revolution there.
Ooh, yeah. Beautiful. I love that.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining me. This has been a fabulous conversation.
Can
you let our listeners know the best place to find your work online to read more? May, where are you at?
I'm at Mayrude on Twitter and Instagram, MEYRUDE. And right now, most of my writing you can find at them.us or them.us, which you said, which I think that's what it really is, but I always say them.us. But,
no, I think it's both.
So, yeah, at Mayrude, I'm tweeting about garbage mostly, but also trans stuff and queer representation in all ages media and Carly Rae Jepsen. So check it out.
Hooray.
Good. I just followed you this morning. So
making connections.
So you can find me online at pretty much any social media, but since they seem to all be getting rid of their porn, I'm probably not going to be posting on as many of them now. At T as in the drink, berry as in the fruit, blue as in the color, tea berry blue. And mostly you're going to see lots of queer stuff and lots of stuff about classic comics, all of those places.
Beautiful.
It's true, and you both are some of my favorite dressers at FlameCon. So,
thank you.
Seeing your amazing outfits there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love FlameCon.
So this
It's
is
a good
Graphic
show.
Policy Radio. This is Elana11, and Elana, you can find me on Twitter all the damn time at Elana_Brooklyn, ELANA_Brooklyn. And I think our next episode might be Into the Spider-Verse, but we might be able to fit in another comics one coming soon. I have exciting guests lined up as well. So for more comics news and reviews, go to graphicpolicy.com. Really, my favorite comics coverage site. Come and check us out. And keep it geeky.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.